Hi there, welcome along. We're going to be painting some lovely little vases of flowers because I got this the other day and have been so inspired by its lovely beauty. So, like last time where I painted some mini illustrations of houseplants in pots, we'll do the same but this time with flowers and we can have some fun with it. Okay, so get your kit and let's get going. Okay, I've got floral nails today because we're doing floral projects. I'm going to start off by drawing some vase shapes. So I'm going to do 4. We're going to have a nice sort of almost like a milk jug, a nice sort of stocky jug. So I'm doing a sort of curved up side and then giving it a bit of a lip. And if you draw your pencil, I'm drawing it a little bit stronger because I know that people like to see what I'm drawing, but draw it nice and faint, and then even if you're sort of sketching about with it, it will still be okay. I'm also going to do a glass vase as a nice challenge, so we can see what happens when we put water into and the stems into the vase and see it as a visible thing. Give it a bit of a base. Then I was also going to do a sort of kind of, I don't know, like a sort of fancy, like a trendy vase, and I will explain all when we come to painting that one, but we'll do a fairly sort of modern shape with that. And then I'm going to do a sort of very fancy, more sort of elegant vase. And it's always easy to sort of draw one side, isn't it? And then the other side can be a bit of a challenge, but just go slow and you can always even it out when you come to paint it. Lovely. So there are my 4 vase shapes. Now we're going to have a few flowers coming out, but we're also going to have some patterns and things on the vases themselves. So this is a case of working out sort of what's going to come first, what's going to droop over the edge and things. So I'm going to start with this one over here, and I'm going to go for a lovely Cornish blue crockery. I wonder if any of you would recognize it. So all I'm going to do is I am going to paint lovely broad blue stripes on this one, and in doing so I've got to make sure that my stripes reflect the curve of the jug. So we start off with one that sort of mirrors the bottom, and then the top one will sort of not be quite as curved because we want to show a sense of the roundness sort of coming up the jug. And I'm just going to leave that little bit sort of unpainted here for a little bit of shine. Keep going on up. So I do a little outline, and then usually we can just fill in with water. We don't need any more colour. And that's a really nice start. And then I'm going to just get a little bit of shadow mix. It's not quite in view, but it's my good old blue and brown shadow. And just whilst this is still drying, it's not completely there yet, on this side, which is going to be my shadowy side, it's going to help that shape along a bit, and then just much more subtle on this side because we've got a little bit of a light source on that side. And then if I'm totally honest, I can't actually think how the handle would go, so I've decided I'm just going to do a bit of a blue stripe on the outside there, and we'll leave that one to dry. Next one over here, we've got a water, a sort of water being visible in our glass vase. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting a bit more of that shadowy mix. Gosh, it's almost completely translucent, and then just getting the tiniest bit more blue in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a sort of bluish shadow just inside my painted lines, and then on the bottom it's all about thinking about where the light is coming from with this one, and I'm just going to leave that one for now as well. This one here, I'm going to do a kind of, almost like a Picasso-y style pattern. Let's see if I can do it with some nice bold primary colours. Now I'll wake up my red, I've got my yellow just creeping into shot here, and I'm going to do some sort of bold shapes. So let's see, I'll start with my lightest colour first. Just put like a circle. It's funny, isn't it, when you start painting a circle, how difficult it is to actually make it. There we go. And then we'll have a red rectangle and some blue on the side there, and that one will come together. And then over here we've got one that's going to be far more elegant, and I'm going to choose a pink and green combination to do this one. So I've got my permanent rose and waking it up, and I've got Hooker's green, which is a lovely vibrant green up here, waking that one up too. And to start off, I'm going to do a very faint wash of the pink, really faint, you can see, just to give us a base. And I'm going to be putting more colour on the edge, and then that will fade into the middle, giving a sense of roundness. So cleaning my brush off, then bringing it back in. Don't need a lot of colour here at all. There we go. So we've got our bases done for these flowers, for these vases, I beg your pardon. And then as we start to add more bits, we can add more detail to those vases. We're going to go back to this one and start popping a few fun flowers in. So this miniature scale means we're going to just paint on a nice miniature simplified style as well. So if you go back into the archives of the De Winton Paper Co videos on YouTube, you will find all sorts of miniature flower studies. The Summer Wildflowers, which was quite recent, is a really good one to have a look at. And then there's also my word art, the Bloom word art, that came quite recently, where I chose a number of miniature flowers and we just simplified them right down. So what I'm doing at this point is I'm just picking up a little bit of Sap Green and Hooker's Green, and I'm using my small brush. I'm using the 2/10 brush, and I'm just creating a whole load of stems that I'm then going to add flowers to. So that's a really nice sort of loose, wild and organic bunch of flowers. I always think the kind of stems that sit in a tall vase like this are sort of elegant lily shapes. So to start off with, I'm just going to paint them as they come out the top of the vase. Because we are going to see these down in there, but we start off by doing it this way, and we give ourselves a bit more of a fighting chance to get it right. So we'll pop another lower one in there. And the other thing we can do here is we can have a leaf that pokes over the front. There we go, because we haven't got too much painted there just yet, and the pencil we can rub out. Okay, so let's get the greenery done for this one. So what shall we have? Maybe we could have some more like dried flowers of different colours. That would be kind of fun. So instead of green, I'm going to use an ochre, and I'm going to have some very straight stems. And I don't know about you, but I've seen some really amazing dried pieces that have been dyed as well. So we could have some dyed colours as well. Lovely. And then for this one, I think we'll go fairly sort of elegant. I might have a few creeping leaves coming down. This strikes me that it would be an extremely stylish sort of asymmetric arrangement. Great, so we've started to build. So we've done basic vases and now starting points of foliage. So with this one, I'm just going to do some really pretty daisies. So I've got my yellow, and I also need a petal colour. Now we've looked at painting white flowers on white paper before. If you want to go and have a look back at some of my other videos of that, the best one is to look at the daisy tutorial, where we did a lovely botanical study of a daisy, and a bit of fluff on the brush, where I use a really translucent colour to paint the daisies. And then once that's dried, it forms a beautiful crisp outline. Then we've got some lilies here, and we're actually going to need a little bit of that translucent colour, and then we'll drop some pink up the centre. So we need a sort of trumpet shape for a lily. So I'm going to start by painting some sort of clear watery shapes, and then going to get a bit of pink and just drop it into the base and run it up the sides of these watery petals. And that will dry and smooth out and look absolutely lovely. Bit of fluff again. Crumble must have been near the palette. So yeah, doing 3, and then of course you do get the lilies that haven't quite opened yet, so you can just do a central shape and then 2 just sort of C curves that support it up the side. Quite often your watery shapes will touch each other and the pink will sort of blend across anyway, so you don't always need to add in pink to every single one. And then just a nice closed lily bud there with a bit of pink in the bottom. So we'll let those dry. Now I'm going to do some sort of bunny tails, which are these lovely little fluffy dried flowers that you get, which just literally look like leaf shapes quite a lot of the time. Maybe like tiny weeny pampas grass, I suppose. That's what they are. So we'll get some different colours in there. I'm a big fan of this dried bunny tail because I really like how you can just have them permanently in the house and you don't have to water them, you don't have to do anything really. Lovely. And then this one here, let's get a few roses in there. So let's I always enjoy doing a miniature rose. They seem to come together so nicely without doing too much. And with roses you get rose buds as well. So always think about what's going on sort of below the vase as well, to the side. I think that's quite nice. And whilst we're here, we can add in the stems of said roses. And once we've got the stems, we can add in some leaves in the gaps. So a rose leaf is a serrated leaf. So if you haven't already watched my serrated edged leaf tutorial, you can go and have a look at that. But also I've got a few rose tutorials these days, so it's great. We've got tutorials building for all sorts of things. So if you're ever watching one of my tutorials and you're like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to do that, there will be another video for it. I can almost guarantee. But we're building up our stock, which is really fantastic. Okay, this is looking nice. Moving back over, and some of our daisies are ready for their centre. So I'm going to get cadmium yellow, a little bit of cadmium orange, because I like my daisies to have a slightly egg yolky kind of middle. And we can just place in a few centres. Now I think I can only do 2. It looks like the rest are still drying, so we can come back to that. But this will be nice and dry underneath now, so we can finish off this vase. So I need a bit more shadow colour, but on the slightly bluer side of things. So I've just upped the amount of blue in my blue and brown mix. There we go. And now I'm going to just do a bit more of an outline. And that also does quite a nice sort of complementary bit of shadow as well. Because of course your flowers sort of poking over the edge are going to cause a bit of shadow on it. And then if you're able to see the sort of edge behind all these flowers, then you can do a little fill in the gaps. Just use a little bit of water on your brush to blend down and help that along. Okay, so this is an interesting one. The shadow, not shadow, the sort of, I guess the warped, distorted stem in the glass. So on one hand, we're only going to see sort of bits of the stem that's going to be a bit faded, because I'd like to think of the light shining off the glass. But if I follow the journey of this one down here, I'm just going to sort of do that. So we're just going to catch glimpses of it. And also I know that glass can sort of warp the shape of a stem. So I'm going to have this one coming sort of to the fore, and that one there. And I think that's quite nice. You just see bits of it, glimpses. And as these leaves have dried a little bit more, we can add a bit more detail to them. So I'm just going to add a bit more colour for a start. And this is just a slightly more concentrated bit of Sap Green, and then, yeah, there we go. A nice little blend up into the base of our lilies. And then just a little bit more, not too much though, because the whole point is we can't see too much. But that looks really nice. Okay, this one here, I'm going to add a bit more to the vase itself now. So I want a bit of my shadow mix, but I don't want it to be overly blue this time. I just want a fairly bog standard dull shadowy mix. Oh, and there's my hand getting caught up. Now, if you want a little tip, when you've got unwanted paint on your page, you get a clean wet brush and you can just rub onto it, and then it usually, oh, look at that, all gone, nice. And then of course wash your hand. Right, where was I? I was mixing up my shadow for my third vase. So I'm not doing a thin outline, I'm doing a purposefully watery outline that can sort of thicken out at points. And then what I'm going to do, clean my brush, just smooth it in, give a bit more roundness to this. Haven't yet decided if I'm done with that vase yet, because I've sort of got a few ideas. But what you can do for your little bunny tails is just give them a little bit more, detail. If you've been enjoying all these little tutorials I've been doing, then I'm so grateful, because we do work really hard on our YouTube channel, and I just want to say it's been now largely down to our patrons on our Patreon account who are supporting the channel so generously. But the cool thing is you get something back. You're not just being completely selfless. We've got 3 different tiers of support, and one of them, the Sweet Pea tier, is actually an extra online watercolour teaching from me, where you get 1 extra watercolour challenge a week on top of these twice weekly YouTube tutorials, where I challenge you to create and think a bit more freely and really boost your development as an artist, as a watercolourist. So it's not just about painting pretty pictures, it's about experimenting and trying out new techniques, new styles. And the lovely thing is you're not alone, we're doing it all together. So there's a lovely community of people who share their findings when we've done a watercolour challenge, and it's just really fun. So I would highly recommend, if you've been enjoying, I don't know, my teaching style on here, but think, well, I'd like to actually try and become an artist myself, or an illustrator myself. So, you know, painting all these things that I've painted is great, but what if you were given the confidence to actually strike out on your own and make something of your talents? So if you think that sounds quite interesting, have a look at our Patreon, and you'll want to look at the Sweet Pea tier. I've got different tiers all named after flowers that I enjoy painting, and the Sweet Pea is probably my favourite flower I've ever painted. So go and have a look on the episode notes below. So I'm just going to do the tiniest waterline without too much fuss, and that's looking really nice. And then the last thing we're going to do is just finish off the detail on these 2 vases, and then we are done. So I've got some black, and I am going to do a sort of Picasso style face. Let's do another eye here. and I'm just going to leave it at that. So that was just very important that that was completely dry when I did that last bit. And then again, it's very important that the vase base is completely dry before starting to do detail on it. So I'm going to find the shapes that I've already sort of implied with the shape of the vase I was doing. I'm also going to do a little rim across the top. What I love about doing all this kind of detail on vases, it can be really quite sort of naively done, but because it's so small, it works. And don't forget to, you could always use the more concentrated version of your pink as well. Clean my brush off, get a bit more green, and I think I'll just repeat that down here. And there we go. The last thing is to put a bit of shadow on these. So we'll just do a little bit on the bottom. And it just grounds them on the page a little bit. Doesn't need to be much, but I think it makes a big difference. That one I've only just painted the pink, so oops, bit of a risk. But hey ho. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed painting that. I've got a thing about painting mini illustrations. I just love it. I'd like to thank all of my patrons for supporting the channel. Your support really makes all the difference to help us keep going and making all these lovely videos for you. Of course, we'd love a like and a comment, and hit subscribe if you don't want to miss another video. All right, see you next time. Bye.